Some people prefer to eat at food stands or restaurants. Other people prefer to prepare and eat food at home. Which do you prefer? Use specific examples, specific reasons and examples to support your answer. When we first look at this question, we see at the beginning here 2 points of view. Firstly, it says some people prefer to eat at food stands or restaurants, and then the second point of view is other people prefer to prepare and eat food at home. And I know that when we see this, initially, maybe our reaction is, oh, we need to write a discussion essay about this because this is presenting 2 points of view. But it's not actually the content portion of the question that's important in deciding your essay style, it's the question itself. And if we look at the question itself, it says, which do you prefer? And which do you prefer? This is asking us for our personal opinion. It's not asking us to analyze the opinions of other people, or it's not asking us to discuss the thoughts or beliefs of other groups of people. It's asking us for our specific opinion. And the best way to give our specific opinion is in an argument essay, not so much in a discussion essay. So when we see this question, then we know that our best we'd be best to write it as an argument essay style. So now if we just maybe go over the breakdown of an argument essay. So an argument essay starts with an introduction paragraph. It has 2 supporting paragraphs. And it has a conclusion paragraph. And in each paragraph there are sentences, and the sentences have jobs to do. Now if we take these away for now, and we'll start with our introduction paragraph. I'll just put the question back up here so we can make sure that we're analyzing it. So now we know in the introduction paragraph we need a background sentence. We need a detailed background sentence. We need our thesis, very important, the main idea of our essay. And finally we need an outline sentence, which tells what points of view, which tells what the supporting paragraph 1 and the supporting paragraph 2 are going to talk about. Okay, so in the introduction paragraph we'll have 4 sentences. I'm just going to take this away and we'll write the 4 sentences together. So based on this question, the first thing we want to do is we want to give some background information. And if we look at the question, well, it's talking about food, and it's talking about restaurants, and it's talking about opinions about food. So perhaps our first sentence would be something along the lines of opinions. Let's bring that font up. Whoops. Okay, opinions. So opinions on food vary tremendously. Opinions on food vary tremendously, as does an individual's culinary skill. If culinary perhaps is a new word for you, it's anything to do with cooking. Now the second sentence is a more detailed, it provides more detail about the first sentence. So we might want to state then the 2 points of view that are given in our question. So we might say something along the lines of thus, some people enjoy, or it doesn't matter, but like to eat out, while others prefer to stay at home. To stay at home and cook for themselves. So this is our background sentence, our detailed background sentence. And in the third sentence, we state our thesis. And our thesis has to respond directly to our essay question. And it's my recommendation to you to actually pull words right out of your question and use them in your thesis, because that will show the direct link between what your thought is and the entire essay's connection to the question. So here the question is saying, which do you prefer? So we might say something like, for me, for to go to food stands or restaurants as opposed to preparing food at home. Okay, for me, I prefer to go to food stands or restaurants as opposed to preparing food at home. So now this has answered our essay question directly. Our question is, which do you prefer? So someone who's reading this essay, well, there's no question in their mind what our opinion is. Our opinion is that we like to go to restaurants. We don't like to stay at home and cook. Okay, and then finally the last sentence in your introduction paragraph states the areas that you're going to use to support your thesis. And before I started recording this video, I kind of had to think about some areas I thought would support the idea of going to a restaurant instead of cooking food at home. And I thought that one area could be convenience, because going to a restaurant is much more convenient than cooking food in your house. And another area I thought might be that a restaurant food has a better taste, or tastes better than cooking for yourself at home. So we would want to state these two supporting reasons in our outline sentence, which is the fourth sentence of our introduction. We'll state that here. Okay, so perhaps eating in this manner is both more convenient and tastier. And I will analyze these areas in my essay. Okay, so if we read the introductory paragraph together, opinions on food vary tremendously, as does an individual's culinary skill. Thus, some people like to eat out while others prefer to stay at home and cook for themselves. For me, I prefer to go to food stands or restaurants as opposed to preparing food at home. Eating in this manner is both more convenient and tastier, and I will analyze these areas in my essay. So now we've finished the introduction paragraph. We're going to move on to the first supporting paragraph. And we know from our outline, this sentence here, our outline, that the first topic in our first supporting paragraph is the convenience of going to a restaurant. The second supporting paragraph will be about how a restaurant is tastier than cooking at home. Okay, let's make these stand out a bit better. Okay, so introduction paragraph, fifth paragraph. Oops. 1. So, now the first thing in our supporting paragraph is our topic sentence. This is followed by our example or evidence of some kind, followed by discussion, a discussion sentence, and finally a conclusion sentence, which is just a conclusion for the topic. Now the way the sentences work is the topic sentence introduces the idea we're going to speak about, which is how restaurants are more convenient. The example is an example of how the restaurant is more convenient than cooking at home. The discussion sentence explains how the example proves the topic sentence. So the discussion sentence is the link between the example and the topic sentence. Finally, the conclusion. The conclusion links the topic sentence to the thesis. So it shows how the topic sentence proves the thesis. So it keeps the entire supporting paragraph linked to the essay. Okay, now we write the sentences together. So, talking about the convenience of going to a restaurant. So perhaps first a linking word could be like firstly. That happens. Okay. Firstly. Oh, of course I need to indent. So firstly, attending or maybe maybe eating in a restaurant is much more convenient than eating at home. Okay, and before I started this video, I thought of some examples that could support supporting paragraph 1 and supporting paragraph 2. So I was thinking that that as an example, for me, when I finish working a long day at work, the last thing I want to do is cook a meal for myself. So it's just easier to go to a restaurant and eat a meal at a restaurant. So I thought I'd use that as my example. So for example, when I finish a long day of work, I often do not have enough time to prepare a meal for myself. Prepare a meal for myself at home. Okay, and then maybe even further, many international restaurants line the street where I live. Further, many international restaurants line the street where I live. So I guess this is kind of like two examples, but so the example is that I don't have enough time to prepare meals for myself at home. And then also, there are many restaurants very close to my home. So for these reasons, it's just more convenient for me to eat in a restaurant than to cook at home. Now, the purpose of this next sentence, this is going to be the third sentence, our discussion sentence, is to link these examples to our topic. So our discussion sentence would say something like, thus, going to a restaurant is a much more convenient option for me. Okay, and then finally the last sentence, all it's doing is linking this whole paragraph to the idea of the topic. So we would say something like, this is therefore one of the main reasons I prefer restaurants to cooking at home. Okay, so when we look at this last sentence, we're linking it directly to our thesis, which is basically that we like restaurants better than cooking at home. That's what we like to do better. So now we've finished the first supporting paragraph. We can move on to the second supporting paragraph. If we look back to our introduction paragraph for a moment, we just finished the first supporting paragraph about how restaurants are more convenient than eating at home. And so the second supporting paragraph is going to talk about how restaurant food is tastier than the food that we can cook at home. So now, just give us a little title. So supporting paragraph 2. Okay, so supporting paragraph 2 is talking about how restaurants are tastier than the food we cook at home. So we might start with second reason is that restaurant food always tastes better than the food I cook. I am not a talented chef by any stretch, and the foods I cook never turn out the way I plan. Okay, so now an example to support this could be perhaps a humorous time in the past when we tried to cook something and it didn't turn out properly. So maybe, for example, I often overcook foods to the point that they are unpalatable, which just means not pleasant. So I cook foods to the point where they are not pleasant. Okay, now a discussion sentence. So like we were saying before, the discussion sentence must link this example to our supporting, our topic for the supporting paragraph 2. So we would write something along the lines of maybe for this reason, unpalatable, for this reason, restaurant food is consistently a tastier option and is therefore another reason why I prefer buying my meals to preparing them at home. Okay, so what I've done here is I've combined our discussion sentence with our conclusion sentence. I joined them into one sentence. So here we have, for this reason, restaurant food is consistently a tastier option. That's the discussion. That's linking our example, because we say for this reason, and we're linking that to the topic. And then the end of the sentence says, so it is therefore another reason, this is therefore another reason why I prefer buying my meals to preparing them at home. So because restaurant food is tastier, I prefer buying my meals to making them myself at home. So now the second supporting paragraph has been finished. We can move on to the concluding paragraph. And the concluding paragraph has 3 sentences to it. The first is a summary, and this is a summary of supporting paragraph 1 and supporting paragraph 2. So the 2 topics we talked about in there, that comes into our summary. The second is a restatement of thesis. So we're going to say our thesis again in different words. Finally, a prediction or a recommendation. Basically, what we believe will come true in the future based on this essay, or what we want to come true in the future based on this essay. Okay, so now the first thing is to summarize in a sentence what we talked about in paragraph 1 and what we talked about in paragraph 2. So we probably want to say something like, in conclusion, restaurant food is both more convenient and tastier than my own cooking. Okay, that's a summary. So we talked about how it's more convenient, and we talked about how it's tastier in paragraphs 1 and supporting paragraphs 1 and 2. The second sentence is a restatement of our thesis. So if we come up back to our introduction paragraph and take a look at our thesis, I prefer to go to food stands or restaurants as opposed to preparing food at home. Now we just want to state this again in different words. So perhaps we could say something like, thus I choose to eat the majority of my meals outside my home and strongly prefer this to cooking for myself. So that's the restatement of thesis. We can choose between a prediction and a recommendation. And I think, based on this essay, we'd probably choose prediction, and that prediction would be that this choice of lifestyle or this choice to eat outside is not going to change anytime soon. So, so I believe I will continue this lifestyle as long as I am a working person. I believe I will continue this lifestyle as long as I'm a working person. Not the greatest conclusion I've ever written, but I'll take it. So that's the essay process from start to finish. So, of course, when you write your essay, you don't want to put titles in like I have. I just did that because I wanted to keep it organized and that we knew where we were at all times. So I'll just take out these. Okay, and if we read the entire essay from start to finish together, we can see how it all connects. Opinions on food vary tremendously, as does an individual's culinary skill. Thus, some people like to eat out, while others prefer to stay at home and cook for themselves. For me, I prefer to go to food stands or restaurants as opposed to preparing food at home. Eating in this manner is both more convenient and tastier, and I will analyze these areas in my essay. Firstly, eating in a restaurant is much more convenient than eating at home. For example, when I finish a long day of work, I often do not have enough time to prepare a meal for myself at home. Further, many international restaurants line the street where I live. Thus, going to a restaurant is a much more convenient option for me. This is therefore one of the main reasons I prefer restaurants to cooking at home. A second reason is that restaurant food always tastes better than the food I cook. I am not a talented chef by any stretch, and the foods I cook never turn out the way I plan. For example, I often overcook foods to the point that they are unpalatable. For this reason, restaurant food is consistently a tastier option, and is therefore another reason why I prefer buying my meals to preparing them at home. In conclusion, restaurant food is both more convenient and tastier than my own cooking. Thus, I choose to eat the majority of my meals outside my home to cooking for myself. I believe I will continue this lifestyle as long as I am a working person. Okay, that's the essay from start to finish. I hope this video was helpful to you. And if you'd like to see more, I encourage you to visit my website, www.ielts-ielts.com. Thank you for listening.